A very long time ago, there was a village called Idu Kingdom. The village is rich in greenery, flowing rivers, waterfall, and deep forest. The Edu Kingdom flourishes with villagers working either as farmer or fishing. The Edu Kingdom is popular for one myth. It is forbidden to kill rat in Idu. You could say the village is rat-infested. The rats live among humans. The Edu people believes when an elderly person dies, they come back as one of these rats, so out of respect to their ancestors they lived with rats like kin. The rats are called Oru, meaning ancestors. This tradition has been in Edu since time memorial, and as such it is part of their life. Edu Kingdom lives in peace and harmony, alongside their ancestral kinship with the rats. When it is time for their annual festival, people come from far and wide to celebrate with the kingdom and also see the famous rat for themselves. The festival is almost like a tour for neighboring villages. Badu, a greedy hunter, comes for the festival and refuses leave after the festival. All the other visitors left except Badu, who harbors a sinister plan. Every night after all the villagers had gone to sleep, Badu leaves his small hut, with a sack over his shoulder, and goes out to hunt the strange rat. As he walks further into a nearby bush, a rat trudges past him. Badu takes his sharp cutlass and strikes the rat dead, saying, "See how big and robust these rats are. These people are wasting good meat calling them their dead, long gone fathers." He laughs in mockery, then picks the rat and drops it in his sack. That night Badu kills 2 rats before returning back to his hut. That same night he prepares a small fire, cut up the rat, and cooks a delicious soup with it. The next morning, Badu prepares a good portion of pounded yam, and treats himself to a big bowl of rat soup for breakfast. As he eats, he thought to himself, "These rats are so delicious. I must go back and kill more." This is how Badu continues to stay in Edu, killing forbidden rats for his enjoyment. Sometimes he even roasts the meat, accompanying it with sweet palm wine. Not long after Badu night escapades, things started going awry in Badu. First it was the fishes in the river. One morning the fisherman got to the river and sees dead fishes floating on the river. The villagers are confused. What could cause this kind of misfortune, people ask, but nobody could provide an answer. The fishermen decide to go report the event to the king. That evening the king made an announcement that everyone should be indoors so the priest could do a purification rituals to ward off evil from the land. This announcement stopped Badu's plan for the night, 2 days before he resumes his nightly doings. This particular day Badu smacked 3 big fat rat dead and hurried home. For a week he eats like a king in his hut. Villagers even compliment him on his robust cheek, thinking he is adapting well to their village. One evening as the sun set and cock crows signaling the day is about to rest, a loud cry is heard coming from the riverside. Villagers rush towards the sound of the voice. On getting there, they see that the river where they fetch drinking water is dried. The woman who shouted had to go back with her empty water pot. People gathered in the village square murmuring amongst themselves. Badu is also in the crowd asking what is wrong. The king and his chief, accompanied with the chief priest, gets to the village square to address the entire village. The murmurs quiet down so they could hear what the priest has to say. "The people of Idu," the priest began, "doom is upon us. The ancestors are angry with us. We don't know why, and if we don't find out on time, more calamities shall befall us." Just as the priest finished saying this, a group of teenagers interrupts the gathering. In their hands are eaten bones of rat. They drop it in the center of the crowd as people disperse to see clearly what they were holding. The villagers, recognizing the exhibit, shouts in unison, "Abomination." The priest shouts, "Who dare to kill an Oru?" He faces the boys. "Where did you find this?" The oldest of the boys responds, "We found the bones near the banana farm on the way to the market." The king angrily stands up. His chief follows him, and they left. The priest waits behind, looking at the crowd with an angry face. Whoever commits this abomination should better speak up now before it is too late for them. Everybody is silent. No one says a word. Badu smirks where he is standing, thinking to himself, all these theatrics because of a rat? If they are that powerful, why didn't they hurt me when I kill them? He smiled to himself. The priest, seeing no one is ready to confess, grabs his sack from the ground and walks away. The following morning, Idu village is as quiet as a graveyard. People walk by, not their jovial self. Everyone minds their business as mothers warn their children to stay indoors. Nobody leaves for the farm or river with the fear of something terrible happening to them. Besides, crops are rotting on stand in the farm, no fishes in the river, and there's also the lack of drinkable water. Few hours after the king and priest had left the village square, a palace guard had announced that the kings have given a 3-day ultimatum for whoever is guilty to come forward, or else they should be ready to face whatever consequences befalls them. Badu in his hut eats the last portion soup from the rat and thought to himself it is time for a new hunting session. He plans to go out that night despite the king's warning. As the villagers goes to sleep, the priests accompanied by other spiritualists quietly sprinkle a ritual water all over the village. Few minutes after they finished performing the ritual, Badu wakes up from a slumber. He had purposely stayed late because he is trying to be careful not to get caught, but unfortunately slept longer than planned. He hurriedly dressed up and steps out of his hut, cutlass in hand and sack crossed on his side. He makes for the bush path where the rats are known to be sleeping this time of the night. As he walks, he notices the ground is wet, and he concludes it must have rained when he was sleeping. As usual, Badu successfully kills 2 big rat and goes home to cook them. He made a goosey soup. As he cooks, he said, "I will wash this delicious soup down with starch tomorrow." He smiles excited. But on a second thought, he notices the moon is very high, showing it is almost dawn. He decides to make the starch and eat. Badu eats a good portion of the soup and falls asleep with the bowl of starch and the pot of soup by his side. It is a bright morning. The villagers wake up ready to find a way to survive the hardship in the village when they heard a very loud snoring coming from Badu's hut. The snoring is so loud, like that of an elephant. The sound draws a small crowd to Badu's hut. They knocked on the door, but no one answers. The noise is deafening, so the people decide to break the door. A man grabs a big stick, hits it on the door, and it falls apart. What they see on the ground is a mystery. Badu, now a huge, heavy bag of flesh, sleeps on the ground, snoring like an elephant. They notice a spilled pot of soup by his side, seeing big chunk of rat meats on the floor. It is clear to all that Badu is the Oru killer. He is the one responsible for the calamities that has been happening. The villagers shout angrily, and some of them runs off to tell the strange scene to the rest of the village. The noise wakes Badu up. He looks confused seeing the crowd. He tries to get off, but notice he is too heavy. He looks at his leg and arms. His mouth opens wide at the size of his body. He cries for help, but people just stare at him, angrily raining curses at him. The chief priest, his colleagues, and the king arrives at the scene. The king orders the youths make a bamboo raft. After the raft is done, the king ordered them to push a sobbing Badu onto the raft. They used the raft to carry Badu out of the village and into the evil forest. He keeps crying and begging for forgiveness, But the priest said it is too late. You should have heed warning and confess to your sin when you have the chance. Let this serve as a lesson to all, he says angrily. The priest ordered them to push him into the evil forest, but Badu regrets his actions but realize it is too late to mend. The villagers turn back, leaving Badu in the forest where his body is feasted on by evil spirits and birds.